Hello, everyone. I think we're ready to get started again. My name is Natalie Arsenault. I'm the Associate Director of the Center for Latin American Studies, and I'm very pleased to introduce our final speaker of the day. He probably needs no introduction for many of you who come to our Summer Institutes for Educators. We're super excited that Mostoufi has come back to join us for the International Education Conference this year. Fareed is the Senior Education Manager at the Pulitzer Center, where he focuses on design. It's the Pulitzer Center on Crisis Reporting, where he focuses on designing classroom resources and educational experiences that connect global news with students and educators. He was a freelance curriculum writer for Pulitzer Center for several years, but he joined the team after working for nearly 4 years as a theater artist and educator in the Community Engagement Department at Arena Stage in Washington, D.C. While at Arena, Fareed devised and directed original autobiographical plays with communities in Washington, D.C., Peru, India, and Croatia that explored violence, health, and identity. Before that, Fareed taught ESL and Spanish in D.C. public schools. And I won't go into all the details, but he was also a Fulbright scholar in Argentina and taught in Argentina for a while. Fareed is here this afternoon to present Screenings and Storyboards, Making Local Connections to Global Issues with Documentary Film. Please join me in welcoming him.
Thank you so much. Thanks, Natalie. Thanks for having me. After hearing that bio, I just kind of wish we could go around to each one of you and hear all of your bios. I bet you're all thinking you all have incredible stories too. And that's actually a lot of what I'm here to talk about, which is essentially some of the work that we've done at Pulitzer Center, where I work with documentary film. A lot of it has come through partnerships with educators. So I'm going to walk us through a process that we tried in Washington, D.C., but then hopefully leave time for all of us in the room to explore some videos on our own and come up with ideas in small groups and on our own. And hopefully I can learn from and we can learn from each other. So before I get started, I'm just curious to learn a couple things about the room. Can I see from, let's say, thumbs up would be every day, thumbs down would be never, and then you can show me something in the middle, okay? So I'm curious, how often are you bringing global issues into your classrooms? Just take a look around the room. Okay, so we've got pretty much middle to high here in this room. I'm curious, how many of you are bringing news resources, or how often, into your classes? News resources. Okay, so this is a room that does that quite a bit. I'm curious, how often are you using video in your classes? Every day, never, in the middle? Okay, quite a bit, a few sometimes, yeah. And then I'd love to just get a sense, maybe I could hear from two people. What do you look for when you are looking for videos for your class? What do you look for? Yeah?
Content, basically relevance to whatever unit that we're covering, or something to offer some kind of additional explanation, or just something to supplement with reading text, or a discussion we may have in class.
I see a lot of people nodding. Can I see a show of hands? Who else is mostly looking for content? There's a content connection in your class. Okay. Is there another thing that you look for in videos? Yeah?
Accessibility. We have a really wide range of students in one classroom, so being able to kind of be grasped by all levels is ideal for our setting.
Can I see a show of hands? How many are resonating with that? Accessibility. One last question I wondered about in terms of length. Can I see from, let's say, yeah, maybe call out some times. What are kind of the times you're looking for? Call them out.
5 minutes. 5 minutes.
5 minutes. 10 minutes. Can I get 15?
15 max.
15 max. Anybody more than 15? A little more? Depends? Okay. So this is good to know, though. In the room, we do have some of us accessing longer films, but it sounds like we're in the shorter film category. So I think I have some resources for you. Okay. So here's what we're focusing on over the next hour and 15 minutes. My hope is that you leave today with some content. videos that are within that time limit, that are accessible across different levels, that relate to a lot of different issues, and that you know how to find more than the ones I'm showing you. But also that you leave with some ideas for how students can use documentary film to make local connections to global issues, but not only through the story of the film, but also through documentary filmmaking skills, which is something we've tried in DC over the past year. So let's start by telling you a little bit about the Pulitzer Center where I work. We're based in Washington, D.C. Can I see a show of hands? How many of you have never heard of this place? Few of you. Okay. I'm glad to see I see some familiar faces in the rooms as well. But for those of you who don't know about us, let me tell you a little bit about us. So the Pulitzer Center, this is a screenshot of our website. We were basically founded 13 years ago to respond to this. This is a screenshot from the Pew Research Center study in 2016 about where most Americans are getting their news. Granted, it's a study by one place, it's done in some ways, so we can't take this as an objective fact, but what are we noticing? Where are most Americans getting their news?
It depends on age.
It depends on age. So, in general, we're seeing that overall, where? TV. The same study actually showed that 9 out of 10 Americans are getting at least some of their news from not TV, but what? What do you think it is? An online source, yeah. And if you take a look, unfortunately we don't have our students' ages, maybe some of our students' ages we do have here. But looking at our 18 to 29 range, where are they getting their most of their information? Online. Now, there might be a lot of benefits to this. And when I work with students, I often want us to talk about the benefits, right? One of the biggest ones I ask is, raise your hand if you pay for your news. Can I see in this room, how many of you pay for news? All right, about a third. Can you guess what it looks like when I ask students? Pay for news. Yeah. So that's a great benefit, right? There's also the benefit that we can get news more quickly. We can actually contribute to the news. There are a lot of great reasons that it's good that news is accessible online. But there are also some challenges. And we can talk about many different kinds of challenges, but let me tell you about the one that Pulitzer Center is addressing. So Pulitzer Center was founded by John Sawyer. This is our founder here. He was a foreign correspondent for the St. Louis Post-Dispatch for nearly 3 decades, meaning that his entire focus was deeply researching and working abroad to communicate global issues to American audiences. What he was noticing is that major publications, as more news moved online, were cutting those positions. In fact, a lot of our global news at this point, it's either falling to freelance journalists, or what we're seeing a lot more is breaking news, right? So what Pulitzer Center is focusing on is not the breaking news, not the journalist flies in, says something on camera, interviews one person, comes back. We're focused on underreported stories. Now, underreported stories might take a little more time. And if journalists need to take more time on a story, what are they going to need? Money. They're going to need more money. So one of the major things that the Pulitzer Center does, our focus is journalism and education for the public good, and our journalism arm of that is providing grants to journalists. So we now have an open application process where journalists, mostly freelancers, apply for grants. One of the main stipulations is that they have to have an outlet, a reputable outlet, already signed up for the story before they can receive funding. The reason for that is our goal is not to become an outlet. Our goal is to make sure that the news media as it stands can still report underreported global stories. So if you have more questions about that, feel free to find me after and we can talk about the journalism side. But in terms of being for the public good and moving into education, what we also want to make sure that we can do is that these stories get a larger reach. So, as I mentioned before, what that means is our journalists are working in many different publications. Some of these publications actually have paywalls. Maybe you're seeing some publications up here you don't check regularly. I know I do. And so what we also do is archive all of the reporting on our website. So let's take a quick peek at what some of the reporting looked like over last year. Notice that just last year we funded over 150 reporting projects. If you were a freelance journalist being paid by story, covering an underreported global issue, do you think you can cover everything you learned in one story? No. So a lot of these reporting projects actually result in several pieces of journalism, meaning on our website we now have thousands of videos, photo stories, print articles that are published in just last year over 100 news outlets. So let's take a look at some of those.
Just look around you. The big society is not doing a great job taking care of this planet.
Atrocities continue to be committed.
It's a story that I never imagined that I would witness.
It is vital to tell underreported stories because we live in a world that's much bigger than us.
Thanks to the support of the Pulitzer Center, we were able to give this issue the time and attention we think it deserves.
I was able to look at the problem, how far have we come, where do we have yet to go, and what is still missing.
We've had to do a lot of reporting on the ground. And the only way to do that is to have reporters on the border where the story's happening.
I met some of those who were threatened as they fight for what they believe is theirs.
The only way that we can affect change is if we're informed. I was able to go into classrooms and talk to students about the work that I did. I think that's where the power of the Pulitzer Center really lies. It leaves me speechless sometimes. How can we help impact the next generation?
We want to immerse ourselves in other people's worlds in order to tell these stories. The Pulitzer Center has been absolutely crucial. Not only to have the grant funding, but also the community around it is incredibly powerful.
Tonight, again in partnership with the Pulitzer Center on Crisis Reporting.
That story was supported by the Pulitzer Center on Crisis Reporting.
Una parte de esta historia se hizo posible gracias al apoyo del Pulitzer Center for Crisis Reporting.
This was made possible with special funding from the Pulitzer Center on Crisis Reporting.
A few thanks to the Pulitzer Center on Crisis Reporting for support that absolutely made this series possible. In an era when media companies are cutting budgets of foreign stories, you are creating empathy and understanding in the world, so thank you.
Pass that on to my colleague who made that. That's awesome. So you can see there is a lot of reporting that might be of interest to your students, but we're focused on video today, right? And you might have guessed that given where most Americans are getting their news, we're supporting a lot of video projects as well. So here's an example of some of the videos that we've supported. Everything we ranged from full-length documentary films to short films that come closer to 3 minutes to 5 minutes. The film that we're going to really dig into today is a 13-minute film. So hopefully it fits into the range. Let me start by showing you that even if you leave, I want you to leave today with lots of resources, because clearly this is a room of creative people who will come up with things I could never think of to do with these resources. So let me start with our first resource, which is this. If you go to our website and click on reporting, you see it at the very top of the page. It will look like this. And there is a menu here where if you click show advanced, you can filter by video. So that is one thing I want you to leave knowing. Within there you can find hundreds, maybe thousands of videos. And also you can search by country, you can search by issue, so you can filter videos and find something of your choice. But I have had the pleasure of being part of an education department where we have worked a lot with video to figure out how we can use film to meet different curricular standards while also connecting students to global news, to underreported pressing stories. So first thing that we have available to you for free is hundreds of lesson plans. This is a website for where you can find all the lesson plans on our site, everything connected to global news, but the majority aligned to Common Core standards, more than half written by educators we've partnered with. So you see here that not only can you search plans, but you can contribute lesson plans. They cover everything from content-based focus to literature analysis, debate, visual art, theater, all kinds of different stories. But we have a lot of lesson plans focusing on film. What I found when I looked at them is there's kind of categories where film being used for discussion and debate, films being used to teach structure, to teach author's purpose, to teach how to identify details and order them, and also how to make film. We are also able to work hands-on. We love to partner with educators on different programs. So last year we led over 400 events, reaching over 40,000 students. We're lucky that Chicago is one place we are able to do work on the ground. So if, I have a sign-up sheet in the back next to these pamphlets where you can start getting lesson plans every week, and also we can start reaching out to you about working together in person. But let me show you a little bit of what we do. So in the film realm, what we've been able to do is, on the left here you see where students actually connected with a journalist, and then worked with a local artist whose film is her focus, and they took the theme of the film, and they watched a film that was about child labor in Bangladesh, and then they explored their own city's history with child labor. This is in Winston-Salem, North Carolina, where the Haynes Company is from. So actually they were able to go to places in their community and examine the textiles industry. And they created a short film about that. That artist also put all of her lesson plans on our site. So artists in the room, that's a way we could collaborate. In the middle here, we had a school decide to use one film as just an anchor to a day-long exploration of social justice. So you see students viewed the film, and at the bottom here we actually have students who collaborated on a dance and poetry performance inspired by what they watched. So these are ideas from other teachers. The last one on the right here I wanted to point out, we have partnered with a Chicago-based nonprofit, Free Spirit Media, for the past, I think, 8 years. And if any of you aren't familiar with Free Spirit, it's a great resource for, I see some of you nodding, for students who want to learn filmmaking. They have a summer program where students spend 6 weeks learning filmmaking skills. They're paid, I believe, for their time. They also have after-school programming, and our role is to figure out how can you find inspiration for local reporting stories by working with journalists to look at global reporting projects. So those students actually have a journalist mentor all summer. So these are some things we've tried, partnering with a nonprofit, partnering with a teacher, partnering with an artist. But I'm here to talk to you about something that I got the privilege to develop with a grant in DC, where our focus was this. We got a grant that was focused on filmmaking, but our mission is about engagement with global issues. So I thought, okay, what are we going to do? And what we came up with was a program that does these 4 things. That we want students to engage with documentary film to be able to describe a global issue. I'll summarize here, visual learners, there it is. We're also then going to find facilitation on how does this global issue connect to my local community. Also, how can I evaluate how this film is made to almost get behind the camera, and then how can I use those skills to tell a local story? You want to see how it worked? And then do it yourselves? Okay. So I'm going to sort of move into as if you were students. Is that okay? So we started with this. What is a documentary film? Anybody? How would you define a documentary? What is it?
Based on facts.
Based on facts. What else? Objective. What else? Provides historical context. Okay, well, just to be safe and keep us on the same page, let's look at the dictionary. And I think that we pretty much nailed it here. We based on official documents, using pictures or interviews with people involved in real events to provide a factual report, which is what you're saying. There's the source for that. Can I see show of hands, how many of you have seen a documentary? Okay. Can I hear from a few people, where do you see them? Where can you find them? PBS, Channel 11. Where else? Netflix. Anybody else using Netflix or a streaming site like that? Okay. Other ideas? Where else can you find them?
YouTube.
YouTube. Okay. Who else is watching documentaries on YouTube? Okay, great. You got it. These are some of the places you can find documentaries. Here are a few more. You can go see them at the movie theater, right? So you can look at, if you enjoy documentaries, that's a place you can go. You can also, on streaming services, like you said, you mentioned PBS, but actually the documentary we're going to focus on was from a news outlet, and it was from the New York Times, okay? So what I want us to do is we're going to start making some predictions about this documentary. This is the place the documentary we're going to watch is about. It's about a person from this place, okay? What do you know about what's going on in this place? Conflict. What kind of conflict? Sectarian. War. There's war happening in this place. What else do you know?
Migration.
Migration. People are migrating because of the war. They're refugees. Yep.
Foreign influence.
Foreign influence. Can you say more about that?
Well, also the presence of Russia, military bases, the United States, also Iran, as well.
Right. Can I see a show of hands? How many people have seen a story in the past year about this place? Okay. Another show of hands. Is our country a country involved in what's going on in this place? Yes. Yes. So this is directly connected to us. We've seen breaking news stories. The Pulitzer Center is not focused on breaking news. We're focused on the underreported story. So here's our underreported story. The film we're going to look at is called We Became Fragments. These are the filmmakers who created the film. And here is the description. I'll let you read that real quick. And before I say too much more about the film, what I actually want us to do is just experience it and notice a few things. Here's what I want you to notice. What are the moments? And if you have those notepads in front of you, I have mine. If you want to take some notes, I want you to notice what are the details that stick with you. What are those moments? And notice if is it something someone said? Is it something that you saw? Also, what do you learn from the film that you didn't know before? What's the underreported story? And the last thing is, if you had to define some of the feelings that are present in the film, what might those be? Okay?
عندما بدأت الأحداث في سوريا كان عمري 11 سنة. لم يتبقى شيء لم أراه في هذا العالم. والسماء تتساقط قذائف كقطرات الماء. وهنا تنتظر دورك للموت. منذ قليل كنت معهم. منذ قليل كانوا يكلمونني. بعدها أصبحنا أشلاء تنقذنا البشر.
إبراهيم
وفي يوم من الأيام تابعت خبر أن كندا تستقبل اللاجئين السوريين، فلم أكن أتوقع أنه سيأتي يوم ويخبرونني للسفر إلى كندا، بل هذا ما حصل. لكن لم يكن باستطاعتي فعل أي شيء سوى قول موافق.
CBC Radio 1, 89.3 FM, 990 AM.
Nice to hear the kids on the first day back. School day 2 on the cycle in the Winnipeg downtown. It's 9 degrees. The airport is just 2.
Oh, Canada, we stand on guard for thee. Oh, Canada, we stand on guard for thee.
All right, good morning, everyone. EAL and learning how to speak and practice English is a big part of why you're here. And so it's the first day of school. Sometimes it's a little bit challenging.
خليل تعرف تفتحها؟ لا علمني زي ما الله بعرف. ادينا جنيه. No, oh my god.
Hi, welcome. Come on in. How are you? Good. Come on in. Well, I think what I'd like to do to get started is to give you a little questionnaire to fill out. The first question says, do you have brothers or sisters? And if so, how many?
وكل ما تعرفت عليه أحد يسألني عن ما حصل، لكنهم عندما يسألون لا يعلمون مدى حرقة القلب عندما أتكلم عن قصتي. بدأت القذائف من فوقنا كالعادة. الموت، الغبار، الركام. فتحت عيني، لم أجد سقف بل وجدت فوق السماء. بقينا تحت الركام لساعات ليعلم بنا أحد. 14/4/2013 أرى نفسي في أحد المشافي التي يعمها الدماء. أول شيء جاء في بالي أن أسأل أين أمي؟ لماذا لم تأتي معي؟ بدأت حياتي الجديدة الخالية من الأخوة والأم.
Do you want a break?
Okay.
You want to take a break? Let's try again. Looks good.
ولحسن الحظ أن والدي لم يكن معنا ويحصل معه كما حصل معنا.
So are you going to start stretching more at home?
I will try.
Yeah? Because it's better if you do it every day, right? When?
Okay.
خلص الدرس؟ ها؟
تدريب على المدرس. تدريب على المدرس. خلص ايه.
يعني هل انا بقدر اطلع ادخن سيجاره اذا خلصوا؟
Hi, my name is Sarah. My PIN number is 85002. I'll be your Arabic interpreter. How may I assist you?
I'm treating Slayman's son for physiotherapy, and I was wondering if you'd be able to interpret a question that he has for me.
Yeah, sure. أهلا.
يعني انا بس بدي انه نتيجه هذا العلاج يعني العضو صار له اكثر من سنتين مزروع باجره يعني هذا والرفيع كثير مو عم يعني عم ياخذ مكانه الصحيح. بس بدي انا بالعلاج هذا انه بدي ينمو ولا بدي يضل هيك على حاله لانه اجره كبيره واجره صغيره.
What are the chances that the leg is going to get longer?
يعني ايش الاحتمال انه الاجر يعني تكبر يعني؟
يعني في احتمال انه مثلا 10%، 15%، 20%.
So is there like a hope that maybe 10%, 15% that the leg would get longer?
I don't think so. The orthopedic surgeon would be a better person to ask about that long-term bone growth.
ماشي، شكرا لك يا اختي. شكرا كثير لك وإلها.
Thank you very much to the interpreter and to you.
قبل ما تكون الحرب كان إبراهيم شيء، ولما صارت الحرب وفقد أمه وأخواته انقلب يعني تغير لشيء ثاني. ضل في فترة صدمة يعني ما يقارب السنتين بشكل دائم يردد وين أمي؟ وين ماما؟ من بعد السنتين تقريبا بلش ويتأقلم مع الوضع اللي هو عايش فيه، انه بدون ام وبدون اخوه.
Mustafa Al-Kalka. Not here yet. Ibrahim? Ibrahim?
Ibrahim, yeah.
Ibrahim? What is the word we would use to describe big countries?
Huge or?
How do we measure big?
And American?
There's a word called area. You know what area means?
Yes. Yeah.
So area is a measurement of size. So when we talk about Canada being big, there's a lot of area, a lot of space.
But there is no people.
In Canada.
Only 30 million, yeah.
So we're the second biggest country in the world. Shouldn't that mean that we're the second most populated?
عمار بتغير صوتك على فكرة عبد الرحمن شوي. ايه والله. كيفك مستر موزيس؟
ابراهيم كبران معي.
كيف انت؟
هاي صار معك بالعملية؟
والله شلخوني فتحوني من فوق من تحت.
What words do you know to describe family? You can just raise your hand and tell me. Yes.
Like a tree.
So like a tree. You can work on this already. 10 things about your family. Okay? If that's too hard, and I understand that that might be, we can just leave this alone. Okay?
أم إبراهيم يعني قبل ما تصير يعني قبل ما يتوفوا والله فترة شهرين بدك تقول بفترة شهرين يعني بعدين هيك حرب يعني مش غالي حرب سبحان الله يعني قال هيك فجأة قال إذا متت أنا يعني إذا ماتت هي يعني أمانة برقبتك الأولاد هاي الكلمة ما بتروح من بالي أبدا والله
والحياة ترينا العديد من القصص ومن هذه القصص لابد أن نتعلم قواعد الحياة خرجنا دون إرادتنا وسنعود بأملنا هذه أول كلمات علقت بعقلي عندما خرجنا من سوريا
All right, so let's take 4 minutes, turn to somebody next to you, and give each person, make sure everybody has someone to talk to, and give each person a chance to respond to these 3 questions. Okay. All right, thank you so much. So we will be back in conversation in just a moment, but I'd love to do a quick check-in with the group. Can I see a show of hands? Who here heard something or saw something that was new information for them? Was there any new content? Few people. Okay. Can I see, if you were to show this to your students knowing your class, do you think they would, raise your hand if you think they would learn some new content from this film? Okay. Can I see a show of hands in terms of moments that stuck with you from the film? Can I see a show of hands for who was it a visual? that stuck with you? A lot of this was visual. Can I say, show of hands, was for any of you, was it something someone said? Some of the audio? Okay. I'd love to hear what 3 of those moments were. Can we hear from 3 people? Yeah.
First day of school, and already asked him about his siblings. He lost them, so I thought that was really nice.
Asking about the siblings on the first day of school. Is that anyone else's? A few of you said that. What else? Yes.
Knowing the loss he has and knowing the physical disability he has, seeing him have to sit in a chair at the prayer time at the moment when he would be kneeling. I've only ever seen 1 people in that situation, and so it just struck me what all the elements that he's missing out on in life. I mean, just in a way that was like, it was just very deep. It just struck me. I can't even really articulate what it is, but in that moment, him sitting like basically an elderly man in prayer was very touched. Very touching.
All right, that moment of him sitting while he was praying. Me too today, particularly. One more? Yeah.
It's Reed's for me. I don't pronounce my name correct.
Oh, for me, for Reed?
Yeah. That's it, correct. Yeah, I think one of the visuals was when they kept showing the smaller person injured on the stretcher, not knowing that was him. Right. Yeah. That's what really, resonated with me.
Right. So, and I know when I've shown this to students, some students didn't make the connection. Did everybody notice the found footage? Yes. Right. And what we'll mention later is part of what we were able to do for students, and we can do for your students, is connect the filmmakers directly with the students over Skype or in person. So we learned from the filmmakers that actually Ibrahim found that footage online. So there was a news outlet that was there when his house was bombed, and so he had the footage and showed it to them. Yeah. So on this last question, I'd love to just hear a call, like a popcorn shout out. What are some feelings you saw present in the film?
Loneliness.
Loneliness.
There's a lot of loneliness going on with that. I mean, his father, after he finds that his son's leg is not going to grow the way he would dream, he sits there by himself, outside, and then in the next shot is Ibrahim alone in that square of a room. Just that yellow color around him. He's just alone. Even though there just seems to be a real disconnect between those 2 individuals, even though they're father and son. Mm-hmm. They're not connecting. Kind of because he's a teenager, Leave me alone, Dad.
Mm-hmm. 2 more? Yes, up front here. Yes.
He touches on when everyone asks him to tell the story. I'm kind of referring back to the other one in the economy. He says no one knows how I'm burning inside when I tell the story. It's excruciating.
The excruciating burn feeling. Another feeling that was present? Yes.
I'm thinking survivor's remorse.
Yeah.
Survivor's remorse. I also heard at your table.
A little bit of hope.
Hope.
He says, we went out against our will, and we will return with our hope.
And from this question is one way that I transition into some of the connection parts. This is what I want us to think about next. This is a strategy. I'd love to hear what your strategies are afterward. So from here, am I clicking it? Thanks, there we go. The open question is, how does this film connect to your community? Here's a way in. Where do you see some of those feelings, that burning, excruciating pain, the loneliness, the hope? Where might you find those feelings in your community? Or do any of just the images or story connect to your community? Turn to those same people. Take 2 minutes for these questions. Go ahead. All right, let's come back together, please. And I'd love to hear from 2 people. I know there are more than these, but just first time. Can I hear from 2 people? What are some connections that you could make? Yeah.
So me and my colleagues were both talking. When the young man said in the opening, "Waiting for your turn to die," that's a familiar term in my world. I was explaining to her that one day I was so mad when I was teaching high school at my senior boys that came in late, and in the most exhaustive way, one of my seniors said, "Miss Dawson, we're just trying to get from the L station to the schoolhouse alive." And I was like, And they went on and opened up a dialogue of them saying, you know, we're doing good, we're seeing this still alive. And so sometimes we have our closed lens and bring our biases into the classroom without really understanding what's around us. And that opened up a whole nother different world of necessary discussion. Refugees are right here on the home front who are displaced out of homes because of loss.
Right.
Culturally, like just because you share the same ethnicity with a group of students doesn't necessarily mean that you have the same cultural practices and background. I mean, you can be in a classroom with students and your lived experience is so drastically different that as an educator, you're constantly having to re-educate yourself with the students that you're faced with each academic year.
Excellent. Yes?
So I also teach science, biology, and environmental science, and I'm curious how to utilize something like this, but maybe with a slightly more science, theme. So that way I could have a conversation around culture or bias. So the first one would be like, so what's the science part? That would be the first question. But then, what else did you notice? What else resonated with you? Maybe that would be a good way to incorporate this into a science type class.
Very cool. So I'm hearing some connections to the structure. Maybe it's the structure of the film that gets us into content, and some personal connections to maybe my life in Chicago isn't that different from this boy who's from Syria. When we shared this film with students, one thing I found helpful was we had a person with us who is a scholar at the Carnegie Institute where our office is located, and I asked her, how would you explain the war in Syria to these sixth graders in a few sentences? And one way she put it was, for you students in DC who were here when the election happened, do you remember that there were some people who were unhappy with what happened? And they were like, yes. Do you remember that there were protests? Yes. And so what she said is, imagine that those protesters came with guns. And then imagine that the government responded with guns. And then imagine that those protesters grew, and then maybe they even went to other countries to ask them for support with guns. What do you think the government does? Maybe they go to... It was just a very cool... And then the way she visualized it was like, imagine that somebody's standing over there at the coffee, and I was the government, they were the protesters, and we're shooting at each other. What happens to everybody in the middle? So for them, that was very helpful, because I think that at least many of the students were confused about sort of, how is this family being hurt in a war? Did you want to add to that?
Yeah, I was just thinking also the feeling of trauma that people relate to. They kept showing that planes or jets coming down with birds. Something that kind of struck with me, this idea of something that's so mundane, but fear of something coming from the sky.
Wow.
So
you're a little ahead in the workshop here, but yes. So what came out with, so clearly there are a lot of directions you could go. What I did with the students I worked with was we focused on, this is a story about a big change in a person's life. So what we then did is we used this story form to write short stories about change in our lives, and we're all going to get to do that in a few minutes. Here's mine, and I shared this one with students. And so then, and this is the example I shared, and students had a chance to write. So this is one example of the connection part. However, I talked to you about how we also wanted to focus on structure, so I'm going to go into that a little bit. The two elements that we chose to teach with this film were A-roll and B-roll. Hands up if you've never heard these terms before. I hadn't, okay? The journalist taught it to me. Essentially, A-roll is a term used to describe everything you hear, and B-roll is describing everything you see. I worked with different documentary films, and with this one, these are I chose to focus on these three things in terms of B-roll. What images do I want you to focus on? I want you to notice there is found footage that a journalist had to find, footage that a journalist had to get themselves, and those can be broken up into action shots, where you see something happening, and places, establishing shots. So, let's do a quick quiz. So, I would love to hear on the count of three, is it found footage, or actually, why don't we do it this way? 1 is found footage, 2 is an establishing shot, and 3 is an action shot. Raise 1, 2, or 3 for the shot. Okay, let's look at letter A. Is that 1, 2, or 3? Let's see. What do you think? Yes, this is an action shot. Excellent. Some silent applause for the group. This is the American Sign Language for applause. What about, oh, it's a little dark, but maybe, let's go with letter F. Letter F, what is that? 1, 2, or 3? 2. Well done. We have an establishing shot. Excellent job, group. What about, let's look at letter E. Letter E. This is a screenshot from the film. What is that one? 1. Excellent. Good. You got it. We could go on and so forth. And I guess you can see with some students, they love this moment. Yeah. You know? And they also love doing this just for fun, for me to check, do they understand these terms? These are the first few lines of We Became Fragments. You see, actually, I talked to the filmmakers. This is exactly how they broke it down. A-roll, B-roll. Let's see if you can match. Take 1 minute with the person next to you. What image goes with what line? Maybe we should bring the lights down. Is that helpful? Yeah. Yeah, go ahead. 1 minute. And that's time. Let's check our answers. Can we get a drum roll, please? Yes? How'd we do? Can I see a show of hands? Who had something different from this? Again, but I bet, can I also see a show of hands? Who had something different from this, but would be willing to defend their choice? They think that it was right. Yeah. And this is where I start to make the point here. Yeah, images are chosen on purpose by these filmmakers for a reason, meaning that the image that you chose would also probably make sense. You could also defend it. But these are the choices these filmmakers made. Let's look at their choices for a second. So, can I get someone to raise your hand and tell me, if I do this, well, how do I do this? I guess I'll do it from here. I'd love to know, can anybody tell me why you think one of the lines was paired with one of the images? Why do you think they chose the image they picked? Yes, in the back.
So it's 6 and 6B that goes together?
Close, it's 6 and F. 6 and F, so very close.
The reason that I thought of the fragments of the birds is because when the birds are flying around, they move like one body, but they're all individual. Like a body being blown apart.
Interesting, which emphasizes what? Why would they do, what would the filmmaker want to emphasize?
The oneness and yet separation of individuals, especially during a time of strife.
Yeah, absolutely, yes. Another one, yes.
So I remember the beat when the birds were flying. I recall the mosque was calling for prayer. So it was like his spirit went back to his home country, Syria.
Okay, maybe referencing thinking back on Syria.
So it was like the prayer call and then his real life here in Canada.
Oh, so thinking about his memory, potentially trying to show his memory. Filmmakers are making choices to pair images and text on purpose. So this is the next thing we practice with students. They went back to my script and they helped me translate my A-roll into B-roll. These are the first two actually shots that a group of students at a charter school in DC thought of for my story. So my name is Mostoufi and I live in Washington, DC. They wanted a wide shot of me and my friends and then a close-up of me smiling. And then you see they wanted a big transition. My life changed when my father died. And that is, they then wanted a found footage moment of me and my dad. This is actually us doing it. So we put it up on the board, and I got lucky that is actually one of the filmmakers of We Became Fragments, helping us walk through it so that I didn't have to facilitate. But you can kind of guess where we went with this. Do you think that we just end with them planning my film? No. We moved into our home. So this is what's going to happen next. For the next 10 minutes, I'll break it up into 2 5-minute chunks. For the first 5 minutes, what I'd love for you to do is write a short script for yourself. This is an optional, about a major change in your life. And I will tell you, I went sort of personal to give students that space to go there, but some students wrote about when they discovered a favorite hobby or when they moved to a new home. So don't feel limited to the deepest, darkest moment, okay? It's just about a change in your life. Take 5 minutes to do a little free writing in your notebook. Go ahead. And that is time. So pause for now. It's okay if you don't get all the way through. And here is what we are going to do next. Make a T-chart on that sheet of paper or on a separate sheet. And we have A-roll on one side, B-roll on the other. And A-roll, again, is what we Right, because that is what we will hear, and B-roll is what we will see. You've got it. So all of your narration will go in the A-roll. And actually, I'll be honest, I got an option for you for this one. I wasn't sure which way to go, so I decided that you can decide. With the students, I was working with middle school, and I'd only seen them twice before, so I was nervous about having them exchange papers and planning someone else's film. Although, if you are a filmmaker, that is generally what you're doing, right? You're trying to tell someone else's story and use visuals to highlight something. So I want to give you that option. If you want to switch with someone at your table and get the opportunity to visualize their text, and for them to visualize yours, that is your first option. Or if you want to visualize your own story, which is what the students did fabulously, that is also what you can do. And you have 5 minutes to do it. All right, 5 minutes to pair visuals and text. Go ahead. And we're already seeing in the room our artistic instincts. First of all, are you now wanting to hear everybody's story? I know I am. So incredible rich stories is what I also found happening in the classroom, rooted in a documentary film about a Syrian boy, right, living together. But also such different approaches to the visual style, which is something that I learned through this process, that is something we can teach students to critically think about when they're looking at any video, right? The idea that somebody picked those pictures for a reason. And what was it? So here's a screenshot of a student's work on this exact project. And this was I don't know if you can see it. Can you see it, or do you want me to read what it says? So it says, my name is Michaela, and I live in Southeast DC, and she wanted a visual of her laughing with her friends. My life changed when my dad was locked up, and she wanted a close-up of handcuffs. The judge gave him 50 years, and he's 50 already, so I know I'll never see him again. And she wanted a close-up of just a gavel hitting a block, so a lot of establishing shots. When it happened, I felt alone, and I hated everyone, and she wanted an action shot of her in her room crying, and then a close-up of her writing. I am still sad, but there's nothing I can do, and she wanted a action shot of her walking sad. That's what she came up with. So this was a darker film, one where I thought, teacher, can I come back? Can this not be the last workshop? But it goes to show, I think that it was something this student really took to. In the same class, a student wrote about discovering cheerleading, which has been a big part of her life. A student wrote about moving, which has been a big part of her life. So the question now is we have about 10 minutes. This is one example of how I took a film and broke down this structure. These are the guiding questions I thought about as I watched this film in particular. What do students need to know in advance to understand the content, and what do I want them to look for? So you saw I chose A-roll, B-roll, and I chose found footage, establishing shot, action shot. Okay. Then, how do I facilitate them making a local connection, and how can they practice that? You guys are teachers, you know this. And then how can I show that they understand the skill and use that skill to tell their own story? And I think all of this presentation will be available to you so you can have these questions, yeah. So what I thought we could do is, we have about 10 minutes left. So if we maybe watch about 2 minutes or 3 minutes of a video, that'll give us about 3 minutes to work in small groups and plan an idea. So I've got 4 films for us to choose from. The first is about a teenage boy from Juarez, Mexico, who was in a gang and then leaves the gang. So that's the first story. The second story is about a Ugandan woman whose relatives in her community tried to take all of her things when her husband died, even though it's illegal, and they were able to do that until she got legal help. The third film is about the impacts of rising temperatures in the Arctic on the rest of the world. And it's from Vox, so it explains. And then the fourth is a short film about what happens to people in Russia who are standing up to President Putin. So can I just see a show of hands we're gonna have to pick one, I'm sorry. So raise your hand for number 1. Okay, let's go with 3. So would you mind just clicking on that one? And we'll watch the first 3 minutes of this one. You're getting the presentation, you'll get all 4 minutes. What's really cool is if you're interested, I did have the opportunity to use this film with students. So all of this that I'm showing you is part of a grant we got. We're actually one element of the trip, and I would love if there's a way for you to do this in Chicago, is we actually got to take students to a news outlet for their screenings and connect them with the journalists. That's what we got the funding for. But again, this entire thing could be happening over Skype if you want the journalists to meet with them. Now you have the structure. You don't even need me, although I'd love to collaborate with you. You could just use it on your own. For Vox, what we ended up doing is students focused on the explainer and the idea of how do you use, for that video, did you notice the emphasis on graphics? Yes. So we focused a lot on graphics. And what we did is we wrote a script as a group that used their school's mission statement as the text. And with that teacher, we focused a lot on the skill and less on the content for that one. But again, it was the exact same thing as you did in your exercise, coming up with a script and coming up with visuals. But also with that group had a lot of students with different needs, different learning abilities in the same class. It's a real strength of that school. And so we also were able to, because of the structure of the A roll, B roll, some students wrote their images with a lot of technical terms. Some students drew. Some students worked in groups. So there was a lot of opportunity for them to just practice intentionally comparing visuals and text. And actually, the image on the left here is the film about the boy from Juarez, Mexico, the film about the widow. We work with all of the films that I highlighted in school, so we can talk separately about any of those if you want. And there's some examples of what they did. This actually was after students watched the film about the widow in Uganda, where they focused on how do you use one person's story to talk about a global issue. So you can see here they picked an issue in their community, and then they figured out who would I want to follow, what would I want to see them do, and so on and so forth. I did want to highlight one last way that you could be using these films in your class in collaboration with us. We do have a contest going where students can use global news as the inspiration for poetry. Last year, several of our winners and finalists used film as their inspiration, and they won some money, so definitely check this out. There are flyers in the back, but in general, please, if you're not on our newsletter already, sign up at the back table. You can take questions. Oh, okay, great. And that's a way that we can get you informed about all of these kind of initiatives. Why don't we take just 5 minutes if anybody has any questions? Yeah.
What's the age limit for the students that can compete in the poetry contest?
It's K through 12, so students, and what we did really make sure, one of my colleagues coordinates this contest, and actually they're blind judged, but she does a really good job of just making sure that the judges have an understanding of the grade level. So it's really more about, can they make a local commitment? Basically, it's a really great project because they just have to use lines from the film or the reporting and then build a poem around it that reflects understanding of why it matters. Any other questions? Cool, thank you so much. Round of applause for you. Find me later, share your films. I can't wait to hear about them. All right.